folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another tag video. This is the top 10 films of the 1970s, and this was created by Jodi's Movie Realm. And I've seen a lot of people doing this one. Lisa Loves, The Horror Miser, Monty G, Jen's Reviews from the Grave, David Diggs. So I figured I'd throw my hat into the mix because the 1970s is an absolutely incredible decade for cinema. I mean, just horror alone. There's an endless supply of incredible horror films that came out in the 70s. But we're not just talking about horror here. We're talking about film in general. So let's get into it, shall we, with some honorable mentions that actually pained me not to include on this list. First one being Dirty Harry. Yes, Dirty Harry Callahan, played by the great Clint Eastwood as the badass vigilante cop. Absolutely awesome film. I love the whole series, actually. Magnum Force, the sequel, is great. Sudden Impact. There is a film that's included on my top 10 that's kind of a similar ilk that I feel is just a smidgen better. My favorite James Bond movie came out in the 70s, The Spy Who Loved Me, starring Roger Moore as Agent 007. Such an incredibly fun film. You got one of the greatest henchmen of all time in the series, Jaws. You've got, of course, Carolyn Monroe, Barbara Bach. I mean, he's surrounded by incredibly beautiful women. I love his car that turns into like a submarine and goes underwater. It's such a blast. And, of course, I have to mention the incredible The Omen. Now, the fact that this isn't on the top 10 list tells you the weight of the top 10 here, because this is one of the greatest horror films of all time, with some of the greatest acting in the history of horror, in my opinion, with Gregory Peck and Lee Remick. Incredible religious horror elements, too. I don't think anyone does it better. One of the great British horror films of all time, of course, The Wicker Man, which is probably the greatest folk horror film of all time, starring the great Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward, who just give phenomenal performances. You got Ingrid Pitt in there. Such a great folk horror film. Speaking of great folk horror films, there's another one that came out in the 70s. The Blood on Satan's Claw. Absolutely incredible folk horror film. If you love folk horror and you haven't seen this film, it's an absolute must. You got Burnt Offerings. What an incredible cast. You got Oliver Reed, Karen Black, Betty Davis, Burgess Meredith. All incredible performances in this incredibly creepy, kind of haunted house horror film. Oh, man. When Oliver Reed has those dreams about the creepy Undertaker guy, that's stuff that just traumatized me as a kid. You got a double shot of Hammer horror, one of my favorite in the Hammer Dracula series. Taste the Blood of Dracula. That just has some of the most incredible atmosphere you will ever see. The Vampire Lovers, part of the Karnstein trilogy, of course, starring Ingrid Pitt, who is just phenomenal in that role. One of my favorite vampire films of all time. Alright, now let's get into it. The nitty-gritty, the top 10 films of the 1970s. So, in at number 10 is going to be The Exorcist. Now, I've heard people say that this film is overrated, which I'll just never understand, because this film is absolutely phenomenal in my eyes. I understand that it's a bit of a slow burn. It does take a while to get going as they set up the story and set up the characters, but what an incredible cast. Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Jason Miller, and of course Linda Blair as young Regan McNeil, who is possessed by the devil. And you see the Catholic Church getting involved, trying to, perform the rites of the exorcism on her, and it's just so intense. Such an incredible makeup job with Linda Blair, and the voice work is just insane. It's just an incredible movie. And the one I was talking about that is similar kind of in a way to Dirty Harry, but I like just a little bit better, and that is Death Wish, starring the great Charles Bronson. This is the ultimate vigilante movie for me, and I love this whole series, actually, every single movie. But yeah, this is the cream of the crop. His wife is brutally murdered by these street thugs, and his daughter is brutally raped and beaten and traumatized to the point where she's sent to a mental institution. And that's it for Bronson, this old school war veteran, just taken to the streets and taking out all the trash one by one in brutal fashion. And it's such a blast to watch, and I love Charles Bronson's performance. Just the ultimate badass. And now we're talking about the greatest shark movie of all time. There will never be another. I don't think there's ever going to be a better shark movie than Jaws. Here we are in 2026, and this came out in 1975, and there still hasn't been anything that comes anywhere near the level of Jaws. The great Steven Spielberg directing this masterpiece of terror. That just traumatized people, made people never want to go into the water again. And there's of course the happy accident, the fact that the mechanical shark they used didn't really work correctly, so they had to keep it to a minimum and only show it when absolutely necessary, and that makes it work so well. And of course the use of some real shark footage too helps, and you got just the great characters, Roy Scheider as the Sheriff Brody, and, Robert Shaw as the dude that just wants to capture and kill the shark and get the money, and Richard Dreyfuss is like the expert, just incredible characters, great performances, and an incredible direction by Steven Spielberg. Now, to me, the greatest science fiction horror film of all time, in my opinion, is Alien from 1979. Masterpiece from Ridley Scott that is so incredibly scary, incredible mood and atmosphere, and this kind of haunted house film in space, that takes place on this ship. And you've got the crew led by the great Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, one of the greatest heroines of all time, And they're hunted down by this alien running loose on the ship, taking people out one by one in horrific fashion. And what an incredible creature design by the great H.R. Giger, legendary artist who also created a lot of the set design. Which is one of the things, one of the reasons why this film holds up so well is that great set design, it just gives this creepy vibe to it, Next up we have the late, great Bruce Lee, the master of martial arts, and his ultimate epic, that being Enter the Dragon, of course, which I have as part of the Criterion collection. Great collection, by the way. Kind of tough to find now, but well worth it. All the films are, digitally remastered, and with a lot of, deleted scenes too from those films. Yeah, Enter the Dragon is such a colorful kung fu epic, and I love the characters too. Not only is Bruce Lee like the ultimate badass martial artist, and he's incredible in this movie. And it's great to see him finally get kind of a big budget Hollywood style movie, even though it is like shot in Hong Kong. But a film with a Hollywood budget, you know, with Hollywood actors like John Saxon. And I love the fact that Bruce Lee always brings in these great martial artists to show off. You know, you got Jim Kelly and Bolo Young, and even Sammo Hung is in there. Even Jackie Chan was like worked as an extra on it. But yeah, it's phenomenal. There's so many incredibly memorable scenes. Like when he's fighting the bad dude in the room full of mirrors, and you know, trying to find the guy with the claw, you know, scratching his chest, and and what he does with the nunchaku is mind-blowing. Next up, we have the absolute masterpiece, a 5-star horror classic, one of the greatest of all time, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course. Loosely based on the exploits of real-life serial killer Ed Gein. That's who the character of Leatherface is based on, anyway. But you got this, you know, this whole family full of cannibals, you know, disguised as, you know, gas station workers and butchers, and they work in the slaughterhouse. Yeah. So this young group of teens goes out to the middle of nowhere in the woods because one of their father owns like a house out in the woods out there up in the wilderness. Bad choice, because some people don't like it and they ain't afraid to show it. Incredible characters, Drayton Sawyer, the cook, you know, Leatherface, of course. You got the hitchhiker guy, and you got that absolutely incredible, terrifying scene towards the end, the dinner scene. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Such a great example of absolute madness and insanity. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, and you got one of the first final girls in Sally Hardesty. And I was surprised. I didn't see a lot of people put this one on a list, and I watched a lot of these videos, but I don't get how you cannot have The Godfather on the list. To me, the greatest gangster movie of all time. One of the best dramas of all time. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola's incredible direction of this mafiosa family led by Vito Corleone, played by the late great Marlon Brando. One of the most iconic performances of all time, you know. And of course, you got an incredible cast: Al Pacino as Michael Corleone. You got Sonny Corleone, played by James Caan. You got Robert Duvall. You know, amazing cast, incredible performances. Such brilliant direction, such a great story. Oh man, anytime this film is on TV, I have to put it on, and I'm like, I'm so engrossed and so drawn into the story. That's what Francis Ford Coppola does. Like, you can't take your eyes off the screen. And of course, one of the most inspirational films of all time, Rocky. And I've seen a lot of people say that they have the original Rocky, like, down on their list, like, towards the bottom. Like, I don't get that. I mean, this is one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, the amazing score alone, the great performances, the great character of Rocky Balboa, created by Sylvester Stallone himself. That's right, he wrote the story. He wrote the screenplay to Rocky. And at the time, he was like almost like homeless, like living out of his car, you know, trying to desperately get a job. And he came up with this brilliant, amazing story that's just lasted forever, that is so iconic. Just this Philadelphia kind of pug boxer is down on his luck, and he gets touched with a stroke of good luck when the heavyweight champion of the world, Apollo Creed, handpicks this guy just because of his name. You know, it's just kind of an exhibition fight, and ends up being, of course, an incredible battle because, you know, Rocky decides, you know, I gotta get off my ass and really try something here, and that's what Mickey does, of course, played by the great Burgess Meredith, kind of instills in him, you better wake up and smell the coffee. You're never going to get an opportunity like this. And he does. He rises to the occasion. He trains hard. And, of course, you got those incredible training sequences that are so inspiring that just make you want to get out there and run and and run up to the top of the steps of that building. Just legendary. Can't say enough about it. And I think Sylvester Stallone is actually brilliant in it. And of course, probably the greatest science fiction movie of all time, the original Star Wars. And yes, the original Star Wars is my favorite, to this day, Star Wars film ever made. There's just something about it that, it's just such a great adventure. You first meet up with these incredible characters, so brilliantly written by George Lucas. There's a whole huge backstory on every single character in this movie. And you want to follow them on this incredible journey. It's just such a wondrous feeling. It's so incredibly creative. I know, maybe some of the special effects don't quite hold up today, and even though they did, that special edition where they did kind of hype up the effects a little bit, but I still think it looks fantastic, especially on this 4K. Some of the space battles look absolutely incredible. And, of course, just the characters are incredible. You got Obi-Wan Kenobi. Alec Guinness is just perfect in that role. And, I love him in this movie, especially because when you get to the sequels, he's kind of relegated more to the background, where he's just kind of a Force ghost. But here, he's up front and center. And of course, Luke Skywalker, and obviously the most badass villain that ever lived, Darth Vader, with the voice of James Earl Jones, of course, and played by David Prowse in the physical embodiment of the character. And then, of course, you got Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, another iconic character. Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa, another incredible character, and just the brilliant direction of George Lucas and the creativity of George Lucas to come up with this incredible story. Man, you just can't beat it. The original Star Wars. And this one, I think, will probably be a surprise to absolutely no one. In that number one is, of course, Halloween, the masterpiece from the legendary John Carpenter. Yes, it all started here with the boogeyman, Michael Myers. And you've got, of course, the great Jamie Lee Curtis, the great Donald Pleasance in his most iconic role as Dr. Loomis. Such an incredible film it's just all about the atmosphere, it's all about the style, it's all about the mood, the music, and the fact that they kind of keep Michael Myers kind of a mystery and kind of keep him in the background for the most part until the very end when he comes out, and all hell breaks loose in the end, and you got that incredible battle against Laurie Strode, who's just a babysitter, who's being stalked by the boogeyman, who's picking off all of her friends one by one in the greatest slasher movie of all time. Alright guys, there you have it, my top 10 1970s movies of all time, and this is a tag video created by Jodi's Movie Realm. And anyone who wants to do this tag, feel free. I'm going to tag Lord Hellhound over at the Horror and Metal channel. Phantom Video. Yeah, I'm going to tag those two and anybody else who feels like doing it. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com.